Monaco, Singapore, Spa-Francorchamps. Two of these tracks are so steeped in F1 history and lore, it's hard to imagine F1 without them. Like having a burger without cheese. Don't be doing that, that's weird. Sure, a season can be held without these tracks, but something will get lost in the sauce. A number of tracks have been on the cutting board over the past few seasons, and the talk of them disappearing has been echoed across the sports fanbase continually. So let's take a deep dive to see what a promoter faces when staging a Formula One event. What a country gives to F1 and what F1 gives to that country are closely guarded secrets, surely hidden to protect the stakeholders. As such, facts are only available through leaked information and are dated. But trends are quite visible because of this, and data can be forensically stitched together, illuminating what is actually happening. Many would think that being able to stage such a prestigious event would be like having the ability to print money, but nothing could be further from the truth. Promoting an F1 race is a complete nightmare. The financial rewards are not immediate or even tangible. Almost every F1 event runs at a substantial loss. These events are engineered to increase the amount of eyes on a country's tourism product, which is why TV is so important to this particular circus. Governments subsidize or outright foot the bill for these events, working out how to host them so they can maximize their attractions' earning potential. Like billboard advertising, motorsport's premier racing series adds a layer of legitimacy to the country it races in. Nations visited by Le Cercle de Formule 1 invariably experience a massive boost in tourism, and that is the end game. Only the British Grand Prix does not have its government acting as promoter. That event is owned and operated by private companies at no cost to the taxpayer. Very early on in the staging of these races, this relationship was seen. Once this vacuum was discovered, unbridled capitalism arrived. As mentioned before, the event itself is not sustainable financially. Venue contracts are negotiated for 10 years at a time. The hosting fees get close to $500 million cumulatively. Bernie Ecclestone, the father of this business model, is a master at exploiting an opportunity to the fullest. Ecclestone became involved in F1 firstly as a driver in 1958, and while he failed to qualify for 2 races, Monaco was one, with his Connaught Type B, he is now arguably the most influential person in the F1 paddock. From managing Jochen Rindt in 1970 to becoming a team owner when he brought Brabham in 1972, to the forging of links with future FIA president Jean Balestre and team principal Flavio Briatore, to name a few, he orchestrated the signing of the so-called Concord Agreements, which consolidated the financial interests of all the stakeholders in F1. The sport, as we know it today, would not exist without his exploits. His management of the sport has created a culture that makes it so hugely expensive to stage an F1 event. Ecclestone moved beyond the concept of selling sporting spectacles to converting race cars into 200-mile-per-hour billboards so that F1 can charge appropriately. To put that into perspective, the amount of foreign exchange of Jamaica's net international reserve stands at under $4 million. It is indeed difficult to justify what could be a $1 billion investment, albeit over a 5 to 10 year contract period, for a spin-off windfall to taxpayers. This limits the amount of countries that F1 can be held in. Singapore's affair can be used as a textbook proof of concept regarding the F1 business model. Prior to the F1 circus's involvement, tourism revenue hovered between $4 to $8 billion yearly. 2008's inaugural race, inclusive of controversies like Crashgate, and held during the then global recession, corresponded with a cumulative visitor spending spike of more than $7 billion. This increased from then until 2019, when revenues soared to $20 billion. While it would be foolish to think that more than a 100% increase in visitor spending could be attributed to one event, these figures show up in the bottom line of every country that has grasped this series with both hands. Not a bad return on a $150 million yearly investment. Singapore GP has the government of Singapore as its biggest sponsor, contributing about 60% of running expenses, or $90 million out of a $150 million budget. These figures are repeatable in other regions if the country in question has enough disposable income available to begin with. All this showcases that the huge cost for getting eyes on the spectacle is not sustainable. However, like Singapore, once the tourism product begins to grow, it doesn't drop to the levels before the event. Eventually, there comes a time when the principle of diminishing profits will enter into the calculations against holding the event, especially if government support is involved. Once the political need no longer exists to stage the event due to the horrendous costs that no promoter can justify for little returns, some tracks will be lost to the F1 calendar. However, there is at least one profitable Grand Prix: Silverstone. Others have enough historical significance and a wide enough fan base to make them core events of the sport. These tracks are usually located in Europe or heavily automobile-based countries such as Japan and the Americas. So, what is the actual breakdown of costs associated with the F1 circus? Well, each track has to be certified or homologated for safety for both spectator and participants, television coverage, and timing and scoring. FIA has created 6 classes of motorsport venue that can receive an FIA stamp of approval. There are only 37 tracks existing worldwide that can actually host an F1 event, and these are classified as Grade 1 circuits. Of that number, less than 2/3 actually make it onto the F1 calendar. The biggest, but usually one-time investment for an F1 promoter is of course the track itself. Venues can cost $250 million to build, on the low end. Abu Dhabi's F1 venue cost a staggering $1.3 billion. Then there are the certification costs. Yes, tracks have to pay Liberty Media for the Grade 1 license on a yearly basis. And remember, contracts are signed for a 10-year period with significant penalties for early withdrawal at $18.5 million a year. Getting in at the low end for the venue, these incidentals can cost $268 million before a single team arrives on the site. Race hosting fees vary with longevity. Monaco, arguably the oldest event on the calendar, pays the smallest hosting fee, a mere £15 million. Russia has paid the largest hosting fee on record at $50 million. Putting on a street race is easier, but there are recurring costs, such as erecting bleachers and preparing the course every year, which negates the convenience and cost advantages for those events. So, last year, when Singapore, Monaco, and Spa came to the end of their contracts, rumors ramped up about those venues losing faith in the F1 business model. Stefano Domenicali, former Ferrari boss, now Formula One management CEO, is towing the company line and playing hardball with the venue stakeholders. Time is running out on the aforementioned trio of tracks, as their contract ends this year. Mexico's Autodromo Hernández Rodríguez circuit was one of the tracks at risk this season, until a 3-year deal was struck between the promoters and Liberty Media after the Grand Prix. Domenicali, though, has increased the pressure by demanding higher fees and more modern facilities per track. While these tactics are always employed by the F1 concern to improve their bottom line, after 2 years of pandemic-driven, lower-than-normal attendance, all but the most lucrative venues felt the pandemic pinch, and are looking to get back into the black, as far as F1 makes this possible at least. Since the waving of the first F1 checker flag in 1950, there have been 76 tracks worldwide that have actually made the F1 calendar. Once a showpiece for all disciplines in engineering, Formula One has outgrown its simplistic competitive roots, seemingly being managed now for content and spectacle. The political side of the sport has dwarfed its reason for existing as a sporting endeavor, like professional wrestling the storyline generated by the athletes is in danger of becoming more important than the sport itself. Consequently, things such as the history and culture of the spectacle become less important. With all that being said, Formula One is forever evolving, for better or worse. This is largely down to the takeover of Liberty Media in 2017. They've revamped and modernized the sport in many ways fans could never have imagined. So why don't you click here to find out about F1's stratospheric growth since the change in management. Oh, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos just like this. See you in the next one.